Attention, my friend. You didn't find this video by accident. Today, we're going to talk about something very deep that I know you recognize as a pattern that repeats in your life like a curse you can't break. You attract people who drain your energy, who manipulate your emotions, and who always manage to make you feel guilty when you try to pull away. Let me be direct with you. This is not a coincidence. This is not bad luck. And it's definitely not because you were born to suffer. There is a scientific, psychological, and energetic reason for this happening in your life. And today you're going to discover exactly what it is. Wayne Dyer spent decades studying why certain people become magnets for toxic relationships. And the answer will shock you. In fact, it's going to make you rethink everything you believed about yourself and your relationships. Have you ever stopped to think about why, every time a toxic person leaves your life, another one appears to occupy exactly the same place? It's as if you had an invisible sign on your forehead that reads, "Here lives someone who will tolerate your abuse." But what Wayne Dyer discovered goes far beyond that. The painful truth is this: you're not just attracting these people by accident. You are subconsciously positioning yourself as a target because there is a hidden benefit that you're receiving from these situations. A benefit that your conscious mind rejects, but that your inner child desperately seeks. And until you discover what that benefit is and how to interrupt this vicious cycle, you will continue repeating the same destructive patterns for the next 10, 20, maybe even 50 years of your life. Let's start with a brutal truth that few therapists have the courage to say. You don't attract narcissists and manipulators because you're too good a person. You attract them because there is an energetic frequency within you that resonates perfectly with their frequency. Think about it this way. Have you ever noticed that people with healthy self-esteem simply don't tolerate abusive behaviors? They see the first red flags and run away. But you see the same flags and think, maybe I can help this person change. This happens because at some point in your childhood, you learned that love is conditional, that you need to strive, sacrifice yourself, and tolerate unacceptable behaviors to be loved. Wayne Dyer called this emotional scarcity programming. Your parents may have been narcissists, emotionally absent, or simply people who never learned to show unconditional love. Maybe you were the responsible child, the one who had to take care of everyone else's feelings in the family. Or maybe you grew up walking on eggshells, trying not to irritate the unstable adult in the house. The result? You developed what Wayne Dyer called compulsive savior syndrome. You feel strangely comfortable in situations where you need to prove your worth through your suffering. Please tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I want to know where the people who most identify with this message are located. And here's the most disturbing part. Emotional vampires can identify this programming in you from miles away. They have a supernatural radar for people who have been conditioned to accept crumbs of affection in exchange for total devotion. Have you ever noticed how they always start by being absolutely charming? How they seem to understand you better than anyone else? This is not a coincidence. They are doing what Wayne Dyer called wound mapping. They identify exactly where you are emotionally wounded and position themselves as the person who will heal that wound. But the healing never comes, only more dependency, more manipulation, and more erosion of your self-esteem comes. Now I'm going to reveal something that Wayne Dyer discovered that will shake your foundations. You have an addiction, not to drugs, not to alcohol, but to something much more subtle and much more destructive. You are addicted to feeling needed. This addiction is so powerful that you subconsciously put yourself in situations where someone needs you. And the more dysfunctional the person, the more intense your sense of purpose. That's why healthy relationships, where both people are balanced, sometimes make you feel empty. Wayne Dyer explained this through what he called distorted emotional economy. You learn to measure your worth by the amount of drama you can resolve in other people's lives. Without drama, without chaos, without someone to save, you simply don't know who you are. This is extremely common in people who grew up in dysfunctional families. Maybe you were the mediator between parents who fought constantly. Maybe you were the emotional support for a depressed father or an anxious mother. Or maybe you simply grew up believing that your worth was directly linked to your ability to please others. The problem is that when you finally find someone who doesn't need to be saved, someone who is emotionally stable and mature, you feel lost. Your internal programming starts screaming, "This person doesn't need me. This means I have no value." And then you do one of two things. Either you try to create drama where none exists, or you unconsciously sabotage the healthy relationship to return to what is familiar. Chaos, the constant need to solve problems that aren't yours. Wayne Dyer used to say, "You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are." And if you are someone who defines yourself by your ability to tolerate intolerable behaviors, then intolerable people will naturally gravitate toward you. The scariest part of all this? You may have been doing this for so long that you don't even remember what it's like to relate to someone in a balanced way. Your normal has become accepting treatment that no person with healthy self-esteem would accept. But here's what Wayne Dyer discovered that can change everything for you. Inside you there is a child who was once hurt, rejected, or emotionally abandoned, and that child never grew up. She's still there, making decisions for your adult relationships, desperately trying to get the love she never received. Wayne Dyer spent years studying this phenomenon and came to a devastating conclusion. Most people who attract toxic relationships are actually trying to heal childhood wounds through partners who are incapable of offering that healing. Let me explain how this works. Let's say you had an emotionally distant father. Your inner child is still trying to win that father's love. So, unconsciously, you feel attracted to emotionally distant people. Your rational mind knows this is destructive, but your inner child thinks, "If I can make this person love me, I'll finally prove that I'm worthy of love." Or maybe you had a controlling and critical mother. Your inner child is still trying to please that mother. So you feel mysteriously attracted to controlling and critical people because when they give you a crumb of approval, it's as if your inner child had finally won the maternal love she always desired. The problem is that you're trying to solve a childhood problem using adult tools with people who don't have the emotional capacity to give you what you need. It's like trying to fill a leaky bucket. No matter how much you pour in, it will never be full. Wayne Dyer discovered that people who grew up in homes where love was conditional develop what he called approval hunger. This hunger is so intense that they prefer to receive negative attention rather than no attention. They prefer fights and drama rather than being ignored. And here's the most painful part. Narcissists and manipulators are experts at identifying this hunger. They can sense, almost energetically, when someone is desperate for approval. And then they use that against you. They give you approval in small doses, like a dealer giving drugs to an addict. Just enough to keep you addicted, but never enough to completely satisfy you. Because if you were satisfied, you wouldn't need them anymore. Your inner child is being manipulated, and you don't even realize it. Wayne Dyer made a shocking statement. The need for approval from others is the greatest obstacle to personal freedom. And if you're watching this video, you're probably living proof of that. Your addiction to approval isn't just a little self-esteem problem. It's a complete emotional survival system that you develop to feel safe in the world. The problem is that this system is completely outdated and is attracting exactly the kind of person who will exploit you. Let's be brutally honest. How many times have you already done things you didn't want to do just to avoid conflict? How many times have you swallowed your true opinions because you were afraid of not being accepted? How many times have you betrayed yourself to keep the peace? Every time you do this, you're sending an energetic signal to the universe. I am available to be disrespected. And narcissists pick up that signal like sharks pick up blood in the water. Wayne Dyer explained that people addicted to approval develop what he called chameleon personality. You become whatever the other person wants you to be. With your controlling boss, you become submissive. With your critical mother, you become defensive. With your manipulative partner, you become an emotional doormat. But here's what you don't realize. By trying to please everyone, you're betraying your own essence. And when you repeatedly betray your essence, you start to feel empty inside. That feeling of emptiness makes you even more dependent on external approval, creating a vicious cycle that's impossible to break. The most devastating thing about all of this, people who are truly worthwhile don't respect those who have no backbone. So, by trying to please everyone, you end up pushing away genuinely good people and only attracting emotional predators. Wayne Dyer discovered that approval addiction has 3 stages. First, you do anything to be accepted. Second, you become resentful because you're always sacrificing yourself. Third, you explode disproportionately because you've accumulated so much resentment that you can't contain it anymore. And you know what happens after you explode? You feel guilty for having overreacted and return to the first stage with even more intensity. It's a cycle that can last decades if you don't understand how to interrupt it. But there is a way to break this pattern once and for all. Prepare yourself for something disturbing. Narcissists have a supernatural ability to identify your emotional wounds. They don't do this consciously. It's almost like a survival instinct. Wayne Dyer studied this phenomenon and discovered that people with personality disorders develop an almost paranormal ability to detect vulnerabilities in potential victims. It's as if they have an emotional scanner that identifies exactly where you are hurt. Are you afraid of abandonment? They'll give you intense attention at the beginning and then start pulling away strategically. Do you have low self-esteem? They'll praise you excessively at first and then start making subtly destructive comments. Wayne Dyer called this vulnerability mapping, and it works like this. In the first encounters, they ask seemingly innocent questions about your childhood, past relationships, fears, and dreams. But it's not genuine curiosity. They're collecting information about how to manipulate you. If you mention that your parents were critical, they'll bombard you with compliments initially, creating contrast. Then, gradually, they'll introduce subtle criticisms that make you question your perception of reality. If you say you're afraid of being alone, they'll threaten to leave you whenever you don't do what they want. The scariest thing is that they do this completely instinctively. It's as if they have an invisible instruction manual on how to exploit every type of emotional wound. Wayne Dyer discovered that this happens because narcissists are essentially emotional predators. And predators always know how to identify the most vulnerable prey. Have you ever noticed how they always seem to appear during the most difficult moments of your life? When you're going through a separation, death in the family, job loss, or any other crisis, this is not a coincidence. They are attracted to people in a state of emotional vulnerability. And here's the cruelest part. They position themselves as your saviors. Wow, you went through so much. I would never put you through that. You deserve to be treated like a queen. Finally, someone who really understands me. All these phrases are carefully calculated emotional baits. Wayne Dyer warned that narcissists are masters of what he called love bombing. They make you feel like you've won the emotional lottery, like you've finally found your soulmate. This creates a real chemical addiction in your brain. Your body starts producing dopamine at extremely high levels, creating a biological dependence on that person. And when they start to withdraw that intense attention, which they always do, your brain goes into literal withdrawal syndrome. Wayne Dyer made a crucial distinction that can save your emotional life. There is an abyssal difference between being kind and being nice. Kindness comes from strength, from self-love, from the conscious choice to treat people well. Being nice comes from fear, from desperate need for approval, from inability to say no. If you're one of those people who takes pride in being nice, you need to hear this. Your niceness is being used as a weapon against you. And the worst part is that you're paying a devastating emotional, physical, and spiritual price for it. Genuinely kind people have clear boundaries. They treat others well because they choose to do so, not because they're afraid of the consequences of not doing so. But nice people live in constant state of anxiety, always trying to guess what others want to avoid conflict. Wayne Dyer explained that being nice is actually a form of manipulation disguised as virtue. You do things for people not out of unconditional love, but because you expect something in return: approval, acceptance, love. And when you don't receive what you expect, you develop resentment. The price you pay for this is terrifying. First, you completely lose touch with your own needs and desires. You become so focused on pleasing others that you don't even know what you really want from life anymore. Second, you attract people who will exploit your inability to say no. Third, and this is fundamental, you start to feel like a victim of life. I do everything for others, and nobody does anything for me. I'm always so good to everyone. Why do people treat me badly? This victim mentality makes you even more attractive to narcissists who love people who blame themselves for the world's problems. Wayne Dyer discovered something shocking. Nice people often develop stress-related illnesses, digestive problems, chronic pain, insomnia, depression. This happens because your body is constantly in a state of alert, trying to guess and meet everyone's needs. You live as if you were a walking emotional sensor, picking up the moods of all the people around you and feeling responsible for fixing them. This is physically and emotionally exhausting. It's like trying to carry the emotional weight of the entire world on your shoulders. And here's the cruel irony. The nicer you are, the less people actually respect you. Emotional predators see your kindness as weakness and take advantage of it without any remorse. Wayne Dyer revolutionized the understanding of personal boundaries with a discovery that goes against everything you've learned. Establishing boundaries isn't about controlling other people's behavior. It's about deciding what you will or won't tolerate in your own life. Most people understand boundaries completely wrong. They think a boundary is telling the other person, "You can't treat me like this." But that's trying to control something that's outside your control. The real boundary is internal. I'm not going to stay here being treated like this. And here's why you have so much difficulty with boundaries. You were conditioned to believe that establishing boundaries is selfishness, cruelty, or lack of love. You probably grew up in a family where your needs were ignored, where you learned that good people always sacrifice themselves for others. But Wayne Dyer discovered something revolutionary. People who can't establish healthy boundaries invariably become resentful, bitter, and manipulative. That's right. By trying to avoid being bad, by establishing boundaries, you end up becoming exactly what you fear most. You know why? Because when you don't have boundaries, you accumulate an absurd amount of repressed anger. You say yes when you want to say no. You smile when you're boiling inside. You pretend everything is fine when you're feeling completely disrespected. That accumulated anger has to come out somewhere, so you explode at the wrong person, at the wrong time, in a disproportionate way. Or you develop what Wayne Dyer called passive aggression, that cowardly way of expressing anger through sarcasm, silent sabotage, or victim behaviors. The result? People start to see you as unstable, dramatic, or difficult, and then you feel even more guilty, thinking, "See, I knew I shouldn't have reacted. I really am a bad person." And you go back to not establishing boundaries with even more intensity. Wayne Dyer taught that healthy boundaries are an act of love, both toward yourself and toward others. When you make clear what you accept and what you don't accept, you're offering people the opportunity to relate to you in a respectful way. But here's what nobody tells you. Establishing boundaries will make some people disappear from your life. And that's not bad, it's essential. People who respect you will adjust their behavior. Those who don't respect you will show their true face. And that's exactly the information you need to decide who deserves to be in your life. We've reached the most crucial point of this entire journey. Wayne Dyer said that recognizing the pattern is only 20% of the solution. The other 80% is having the courage to make deep and fundamental changes in how you relate to people and to yourself. The painful truth is that you're going to need to go through a period of emotional detoxification. Just like a drug addict needs to go through withdrawal to heal, you're going to need to go through a period where you'll feel extremely uncomfortable. Because you are addicted to toxic dynamics. When you start establishing healthy boundaries, your inner child is going to panic. She's going to scream, "They're going to abandon me. I'm going to be alone. I need to go back to being nice." That voice is going to be deafening for the first few months. Wayne Dyer called this the storm before the calm. You're going to have almost irresistible impulses to return to old patterns. When that narcissist calls you crying, saying he's changed, that you're the only person he really loves, a part of you is going to want to believe it. When your family emotionally blackmails you, saying you've become selfish, you're going to feel overwhelming guilt. But here's what Wayne Dyer discovered. This is the most important phase of your entire transformation. This is where you choose between your toxic comfort zone and your emotional freedom. And the choice needs to be made every day, sometimes several times a day. The first practical step is learning to tolerate the feeling of being bad in others' eyes. You were conditioned to avoid this feeling at all costs. But Wayne Dyer taught that this tolerance is the most important muscle you can develop. When you can feel comfortable being bad to people who treat you badly, you break decades of programming. The second step is developing what he called toxicity radar. You need to learn to identify red flags in the very first encounters with a person. Do they ask too many personal questions too quickly? Do they tell stories about how they were victims of all their ex-partners? Do they give excessive compliments about superficial things? Are they excessively charming in a way that seems almost theatrical? The third step is creating what Wayne Dyer called a circle of integrity, a small group of genuinely healthy people who will support you in this transformation. Because you're going to need healthy mirrors to counterbalance the toxic voices that will try to pull you back. Wayne Dyer used to say that the most powerful moment in anyone's life is when they stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How can I use this experience to become a stronger and freer person?" If you've made it this far, it's because you're ready for this transformation. But let me be direct. It's not going to be easy. You're going to question your decisions hundreds of times. You're going to have days where you feel lost, where you doubt if you're doing the right thing. This is normal and necessary. The first thing you need to understand is that this journey isn't about becoming a perfect person or never making mistakes again. It's about developing enough self-awareness to recognize when you're repeating old patterns and having tools to get out of them quickly. Wayne Dyer taught a simple but revolutionary daily practice. Every morning before leaving the house, look in the mirror and make this declaration. Today I choose to honor myself. Today I choose to respect myself. Today I will not betray my essence to please anyone. It may seem simple, but this practice reprograms your subconscious day after day. The second tool is learning to ask the right question in every situation. Don't ask, "What will this person think of me?" Ask, "What would I think of myself if I didn't defend my own values now?" This shift in focus completely transforms your decision-making. Prepare for some people to leave your life, and celebrate that. As Wayne Dyer said, when you raise your emotional vibration, people who operate at lower frequencies naturally move away. This isn't loss. It's energetic cleansing. Your life is about to become infinitely simpler and more peaceful. Healthy relationships are easy. They flow naturally. There's no constant drama, no need to fight for love, no emotional roller coaster. There is mutual respect, clear communication, and growth together. You deserve relationships where you can be authentic without fear of rejection, where your needs matter as much as the other person's, where there is real reciprocity, not just you giving and giving until you're exhausted. The version of you that will exist a year from now, after implementing these changes, will barely be able to recognize the person you are today. This is the promise Wayne Dyer made, and it's the promise I make to you now. Your emotional freedom is within reach of your hands. What are you going to do with it?